So our next speaker is Dr. Orville Baldos, and Orville is an assistant researcher in sustainable ornamental production with CTAR. His research interests include native Hawaiian plant materials, development for landscape and ornamental use, screening and selection of non-invasive ornamental species, and development of sustainable ornamental plant production and landscape management practices. So, big job. Thank you for coming today. Welcome.
Just giving you an update on what I'm doing in terms of research on native Hawaiian plants. For this talk, I'm focusing on two species that we did some research on. So first one is Pauhiaka, which is Germplasm sandwicensis, and the second one would be Peperomia species, or Alaala vainui. So Germplasm is a common coastal plant around the islands. It's actually an endemic species. We did some collections from the different islands from Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island, and we saw some differences between those accessions, and it appears that there is potential to evaluate or to select accessions for hanging basket use. Pauhiaka is very easily propagated from cuttings, and it can have some pests like sweet potato worm, and then rarely it can be attacked by aphids, mealybugs, and spider mites. So we collected 6 accessions from Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island, and based on morphological characterization, so we did measurements of the leaves, internode length, how branched the stems are. And then we came up with 3 accessions out of the 6 that would be moved forward into hanging basket trials. So these are Lyon Arboretum, which was a seedling accession from Leeward Community College. So this one has white flowers, dark purplish red stems. The leaves doesn't have any hairs or pubescence. Mahana or South Point was a wild collected accession from South Point here on the Big Island. It's white flowered, the leaves and stems are pubescent, so it's a little bit hairy, and then the stems are also green. And then the third accession that we forwarded for testing for hanging baskets is Puhala Bay, which is an accession from Maui. It has pale blue flowers. The stems and the leaves are pubescent, and then the stems are green. What's unique about Puhala Bay is compared to the other 6 accessions, compared to the other 5 accessions, is that this one has wavy leaves, so it has that ornamental characteristic. So aside from characterizing like the physical attributes of the accessions, we also looked at the rooting of the different accessions, because there may be, although in general we can say that Germplasm can be easily propagated from stem cuttings, we're not quite sure if this actually is true for the 6 accessions that we collected. So we tried to do propagation using 3 to 4 leaves, and then we wondered whether we could propagate it from single node stem cuttings with a leaf, because we don't have any much plant material. So if it's possible to have that single node stem cutting, we can produce a lot more plants. So we propagated both the pubescent accessions, so the 3 pubescent accessions, and then the 3 glabrous or the non-hairy accessions. And then we compared single and 4 node cuttings, and put it under mist irrigation with a 1-to-1 perlite mix. What we found is that the 4 node cuttings still work the best, although some accessions like Ahihikinau or Scheidler, these weren't advanced to the hanging basket stage. It was possible to propagate them using the single node cuttings. What we also found out is that the hairy accessions in general rotted more easily and had poor establishment. This is one dramatic picture of the glabrous or waxy accessions versus the hairy accessions under the mist. You can see here, they were planted at the same time, but the ones that are hairy already started to decline and rot. So I guess just as a review, so these are the hairy accessions on top. So McGregor, Puhala Bay, South Point, and then Ahihikinau, Lyon Arboretum, and then Scheidler College. So in summary, for the rooting accession study, single node stem cuttings can work with Scheidler and Ahihikinau only. If you want to propagate these accessions, 3 to 4 leaf cuttings would be still be the best. Accessions that are hairy, they rot easily, so we need to find other ways to propagate these hairy accessions. Maybe do something like a sub-irrigation, wherein the water is underneath, so there's no water on top. And since we forwarded South Point also in that group of 3 accessions, one general result that we found with the rooting study was that South Point had poor rooting and establishment under mist. So maybe doing that sub-irrigation would help with propagating this particular accession. So since we had problems with South Point, we only did research on the 2 accessions, Lyon Arboretum and Puhala Bay. So what we did was we propagated 3 to 4 node cuttings and then selected this sort of growth to have uniform plants. And we did pinching treatment. So we had a control treatment, a no pinch treatment, 2 pinch treatment, which is about 82 days after propagation, 4 pinches about 110 days after propagation, and 6 pinches about 138 days after propagation. So this is just a table of how the pinching treatments were done. So we started off with propagation so that took about 21 days. We acclimatized the cuttings once it got rooted. So for another 21 days, we pruned the potted plants and then regrew it for 12 days. And then the first manual pinching was done about 68 days after propagation. And then the pinching was done every 2 weeks. So yeah, so T2 had just twice, and then this one has 4 times and then 6 times pinch. And we built our own hanging basket setup with a drip irrigation in here and observe the treatments. This picture just shows you the differences in how the accessions responded to pinching. So Puhala Bay, as you can see here, has more lateral branching with the pinch or with actually pruning the plant material, whereas Lyon Arboretum didn't respond that much. So you can see here there's differences between accessions. So we kind of treated these 2 accessions differently. So this is Lyon Arboretum at the different stages of, so 96 days, 124, 152, this is just a control treatment, so no pinch, so you can see that it just elongated. We did some pinching plus trimming. So these are our pinching trimming treatments for Lyon Arboretum. So this is just twice pinch, 4 times, and then 6 times. So as you can see, the more pinches and trimming that you have, the more bushy it was. So, which was nice. And we also looked at leaf defoliation. So with the control treatments with no pinching and no pruning and manual pinching, we found defoliation to start at about 124 days after propagation. We also saw some severe leaf defoliation with just twice pinching at about 152, but with continuous pinching, and you can see that the defoliation was prevented because it produced more branches, more side shoots. So in summary, for the pinching, trimming treatment for Lyon Arboretum, it caused shorter stems, so more bushy growth. The best looking plants were pruned plus 4 times manual pinching with trimming at 124 days after propagation, and that we observed delayed defoliation with manual pinching and trimming. So that was Lyon Arboretum. So this was Puhala Bay. So this was just pruning once. So this is our control treatment at 96, 124, and 152 days. As you can see here, at 152 days, you get already severe defoliation of the plant. These are the pruning and manual pinching at 96, 124, and 152 days. They look nice at twice and then 4 times pinching, but at 6 times manual pinching, you get some leaf defoliation already going on there. So this is just a tabular form of observed defoliation. So our no pinching, manual pinching treatment defoliated at 124 days. T2, T3, and T4 defoliated severely at 152 days. So the pruning and the pinching didn't really delay the defoliation of the Puhala Bay accession. So yeah, so in conclusion, so Puhala Bay responds to manual pinching. Our best looking plants were twice manual pinching, pruning plus twice manual pinching about 96 days after propagation. And about 124 days after propagation, we saw all of the treatments starting to defoliate. So that was the hanging basket trial for the Jackmontia. Now we move on to Ala Vainui, or Peperomia species. So in Hawaii, we have about 25 species, 2 native and 23 endemic. They possess various shapes and colors, and that makes it for selecting species for potential use as indoor plants. Just an update on Peperomia sandwicensis. I think I presented the indoor study last year. So this was found to be the most tolerant. So we've tested 4 species under 3 light levels, 1 window light, office light, and then the low light treatment, which is our kill treatment. And we found about 60% survival for the lowest light level for Peperomia sandwicensis. And then Blanda was dead at that time, and then the other 2 species that we tested were already dead at the lowest light level. So we found it. So we found this species as a good candidate for indoor use. So we're trying to ramp up our stock plant. So we moved our stock plant production indoors. Actually, we're growing it hydroponically because we're having problems with heat inside Magoon, inside the screen houses at Magoon. But indoors, they're doing well. So we're just propagating a bunch of stem cuttings and also leaf cuttings. We also found that leaf cuttings were most successful under sub-irrigated conditions than outdoors under mist, because we did propagation under mist with perlite and vermiculite. We saw like 13% survival, whereas leaf cuttings sub-irrigated under indoor conditions, we got about 90% or up survival and rooting. I was seeing some, I guess, meltdown. I guess the plants usually melt during the summer, and I also observe differences in rooting with our greenhouse, because our greenhouse, the fan actually most of our fans have died, so it's very hot indoors in that greenhouse. So I was kind of curious whether heat might be a factor in rooting of these leaf cuttings. So I did this heated and unheated treatment indoors, and then found that the heated treatment had lower root lengths compared to the ones that are not heated and under like AC conditions, about room temperature conditions. June of this year, I actually presented this species at the Big Island Association of Nurseries and to see if there's any interest with the growers. Hopefully, I'll plan to distribute some plant materials to Oahu nurseries soon, so I'm kind of ramping up production and just giving it to nurseries and then see if the plant material works for them. And then I have a graduate student who's going to start tissue culture studies on this species soon. Aside from Peperomia sandwicensis, I'm also trying to ramp up a germplasm collection of Peperomia species around the island. So just the past 2 years, I collected species from Kauai, Oahu, Maui, Hawaii, and then there was one researcher actually who did some collections I would say about 2 years ago, and he kept his samples at the live plants at the UC Berkeley Botanical Garden, so I was able to get some leaf and stem cuttings from them. So I have added Blanda, Hesperomania, Hypoluca, which is a Big Island species, Latifolia, mauiensis, and then sandwicensis in the collection. So I'm propagating them and growing them indoors. Next year, I have a project in Maui trying to market Peperomia mauiensis. So this is another potential species for indoor use. So right now, I'm just trying to increase the planting material to do some indoor light studies and hopefully do market research. And provide planting materials to the Maui nurseries and then see if they can propagate and then there's any interest if it works for them or not. Next year, I'll also go to some events on Maui, have these plants out, and then try to get a survey from the public whether there's interest with this species. So if you guys are growers and you're interested in testing out these selections, let me know. I have a limited number of plants. Well, I'm also producing sandwicensis, so if you guys are interested, let me know and contact me. I actually have some plants in Komohana growing right now. So I'd like to thank my grad students, Christine, Daryl, Alita, and then my student help, Mugun Research Station, Lyon Arboretum for providing materials, the plant material. Then these are my funding sources for my research. All right, thank you. Yes,
so
Russell.
If they don't prune, they're going to have a lot of leaf dieback on.
They'll be just leggy. So you have long stems and then the leafy stems are at the tip. But I actually, we're maintaining these plants in the hanging basket still. So I think with hard pruning, you can have it regrow. Yes?
Did you guys try sub-irrigation for the plants with the pubescent?
Not yet. So we're going to try that. Try to root it with turfis and then just have, I guess, sub-irrigation. All right.
Thank you.
No more questions. Okay.